Folks, welcome back to another episode of the IMGPH podcast. As you all know, if you listen to this podcast, public health is everywhere. Public health is in your life, in your friends' lives, in your family's lives. Public health is absolutely everywhere. That's why we've had people from all kinds of backgrounds on this podcast, ranging from policymakers, dancers, and even Michelin star chefs. But today we're going to go deep into the world of accessibility. Now, all of you might be thinking, what even is this word accessibility? But we have someone that has dedicated her entire life going forward to the world of accessibility. We have Spandita Sarmah. Spandita actually did her undergrad in software engineering. And from there is actually pursued a program into the world of engineering here at NYU Tandon in a program called Integrated Design and Media, where she specialized and settled into the world of accessibility and design for accessibility. Spandita is a human-centered designer and has worked with companies all around the world such as Deloitte, T-Mobile, and even Google. Today, we're going to go deep into this world of what accessibility is and how it impacts your life today. Spandita, welcome to the IMGPH podcast.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. And you said a lot of things. I love that, but I would just like to add to it a little bit and provide a little visual description of myself because I do that all the time. So I am a brown South Asian female with black hair, and I have dark brown black eyes, and I'm wearing a pink blazer today over a brown dress.
Wow. Okay, you're the first intro ever on this podcast that has given a visual description. Can we help me do that as well for the listeners?
Absolutely. Yes, I do this because whenever I'm in a meeting or, it's just being inclusive and thinking about people who could attend the meeting, who would be attending the meeting or who would be watching a video that I'm making maybe. It's just being inclusive that so many different kinds of people with vision impairments may attend a meeting or may be watching a video that I'm in. So for them to really understand, or it's just my way, I guess, of making this experience of viewing me accessible or equitable. Someone without a vision impairment would watch me. Someone with a vision impairment or who is blind cannot see me. So this is my way of making this experience equitable, I guess. So just describe how you visually look, your color, skin, hair, anything. It's your description.
Man, I don't even know myself, but that's such an interesting way to help others also see you that don't have access. So let me say who I am, right? My name is Aman Chopra. I am the host of the podcast that you're listening to right now. Is that correct so far? I'm a brown South Asian man. The last time I checked the color of my eyes. I have light brown eyes. I'm wearing a white shirt and gray pants with black socks and black shoes. And the pants are really tight today.
See, there's no right or wrong way of doing it. It's just an effort to make things better than they really are.
I find that so cool because I had to think a lot before doing that. And as someone that talks to people every day and on a regular basis, that was very challenging for me to do. So I wonder, how can that process even be incorporated into daily life? It seems like no one I know really thinks about it. How is it in your world?
It is, because I've been thinking about this for a very long time. And so you said a lot of things about me. I'm also an artist. I have been painting since I was 6, I think. I think about this stuff. I think about how we can make things more inclusive and accessible. What I really mean by that is we have 5 senses. But things like viewing art, a physical piece of painting, that only makes you use one sense, that is your vision. So opening more doors would be creating an alternate piece, making it tactile, like an alternate version of it, right? It does not replace the original painting, but it's like an add-on for it to become more accessible. So how do you make things better than they are currently? So when I'm in a meeting, when I'm introducing myself, when I'm speaking in front of people, and I don't know who's going to attend that meeting or who's going to watch this video. So I'm not going to make any assumptions by thinking people with disabilities would not be my audience. This is one mistake that a lot of us do. We've all done that, and it's so wrong. Deciding our target audience. When you decide your target audience, when you're making a product, when you're doing anything, you decide your target audience. And you decide the target audience is not going to be people with disabilities. How, and why? That's not true. Anybody could be watching the video. So make it accessible as you can make it. Like add closed captions and so many things.
You know, there's a deep world to dive into over there, and our viewers are probably already intrigued by what you're saying. I'd love to go back to the beginning of where you started. So I mentioned that you were a software engineer. I actually had painter in your intro, and I forgot to say it as well. So we're going to explore that a little bit more. But you're a software engineer. You identify as an artist at heart. How did you decide to pursue both these paths and intersect them when you first started your journey?
So many things. I have been painting ever since I picked up a pencil or a pen. I think it was a pencil. But art is what defines me, I think. Art is the way I express myself. Art is how I see myself. I love art. Everything about it. Have been painting. When I moved to New York, I moved with like 40 paintings that I had painted, because being around my paintings, it just makes me feel like home.
It must have been a lot of baggage cost.
So I shipped them. Them to New York. I got them shipped. But more than that, it sort of transitioned over time from being an artist to being an engineer to being a designer to now being a researcher. And I think this is where I want to be, because instead of just going in and building things, just making things with just requirements that come to you, I wanted to be involved in the decision making of what gets built. Is it even required? What features are you adding? Are those features really desired by your users? So I wanted to do that part of user research, and I just found it very helpful. My internship, I think it was in 2015. That was the first time I was exposed to user research. It was in the Indian Institute of Technology, and we were building a hand gesture recognition system for people with fine motor impairments who cannot, dexterity issues. You cannot type, so you will show a gesture to the computer, and the computer will understand what the gesture is and, process things based on that. And we tested it out with users, and it just hit me that we don't generally think of such things. There are so many different kinds of people in the world, and things are designed based on standards. I started asking, what are standards? What do you mean when you say standard? What is a standard face? What is a standard outfit or standard size? I'm sorry. What is a standard size? I started asking that question. I shop a lot. I try out beauty products virtually. The face that they have to try products on, that's one face. You can change the color, that's it. Someone may have a face that looks different than what they call standard. The definition of standards really started to bug me, and I never came out of it. I went in into user research. And I think my grad degree at NYU, I wanted to learn more, and I wanted to just work with leaders in this industry, and I got to work with a lot of amazing, incredible professors. And I think the foundation or the principle that I follow is, when you're building something, you don't build it for them, you build it with them. If you're doing research, if you're building a product, don't build something for someone who is blind. You cannot put a blindfold on for 2 hours and assume the struggles, or assume the perceptions, or assume what someone who has been blind since birth or for a few years even has gone through, or thinks of a product, or things of certain things. You cannot assume these things. You need to include them in your process of building stuff. It is not for them, it is with them. That's what one of my professors used to say. I say it all the time now. It's not for them. You cannot do something for somebody. You have to do it with them, because including them in the process is actually empowering them. And I digress. I mean, it's just, people talk about empowering people with disabilities. What empowering people with disabilities does not mean building things for them. Bring them into your process, include them in the decision making, include them in the building process.
This is how I see your passion, and I'm sure everyone is feeling that passion through it. Because I was curious to know like how this journey started, and immediately this passion kicks in of, oh, what's next? This is what's important. This is what's there right now. Let's take a step back so we can even understand who you are, because when I looked you up, I was fascinated with the amount of things that you have done and researching about you. I'm really, really interested to know that love for tech that you're talking about, that love for design, making things. How did you come to terms with those words at an early age? Did you know like what made you like tech at that age? What made you like design at that age?
I wanted to study art and everything. But then I got introduced to coding in high school, I think. And I really liked that. I liked the aspect of building things and they actually become functionable things. I took a creative coding class at NYU as well. That lets you code and you just create artwork with your code. That was very interesting. I like coding because it lets you build. I like building. Even though I don't think building is possible or building should be done without any research, without the involvement of people. You have to build. People are building things everywhere. I just want to build the right way.
Nice.
I want to build things.
So that's what you realized. You enjoyed doing it, and then all of a sudden you saw what business people would call gap in the market, but you saw big issues in the world that needed to be fixed. What was that moment for you that introduced you to the world of accessibility? Was there a specific moment where you're like, this is accessibility? How did you get introduced to that?
It was a couple of moments. It started in 2015 during that internship when I realized using a keyboard, a mouse, using a computer might not be accessible to people. And we user tested it. We tested it with so many people and found interesting, amazing insights. But if you're, showcasing art somewhere or painting somewhere, you're just automatically eliminating an entire community, not an entire community, so many communities. You're just letting them use one sense that is your vision. And that sort of kept coming to me, but I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know what to do in terms of art. I was trying to make progress in terms of technology because I was working everywhere. That internship changed my life, really. And then after that internship, I went back to my school and I built more.
Which internship are you talking about?
The Indian Institute of Technology,
Okay.
that internship. After that, I didn't leave that project. I sort of built on top of it. I built a license plate recognition system. Back then, it was not a very common thing.
Yeah.
So I liked gesture recognition a lot. I liked computer vision. I liked these things, image processing. I liked doing all of those things. But yeah, I just kept thinking about accessibility and I wanted to know more. I wanted to study more. That's why I moved to New York. That changed my life.
So you first started noticing trackpads, keyboards, mouse, and you're saying, oh, there's something off. And then the internship changed your life where you come over there.
And I forgot to say something. The research, I think I said that I transitioned into research from tech to design to research. But I was, without even knowing when, this is back in 2008 or 2009, I think, I was doing projects to raise awareness about pollution and build a portal. I was conducting research back then as well. I just did not know that that was qualitative or quantitative research. Now I have that knowledge and I know these terms. But back then I was a child, but I was still conducting a lot of research, surveys, interviews, focus groups without knowing those are called focus groups. Without knowing that these terms, I was conducting research already, and I really, really liked research.
So that is interesting. So we have heard your entire journey of what got you there, and what I'm noticing consistently is this itch to share this passion and this requirement with everyone. There's this word disability, accessibility, disability. Most of our listeners have heard about it, including myself. What does this truly mean to you? What does this word even mean?
Accessibility is designing for disability. Universal design is accessible design. If you design something for disability, that becomes accessible design. And that becomes universal design, because designing something for a disability makes things better for everybody. I will give you an example. Closed captions, that was built or developed for people who could not hear and they would read the text. We all use closed captions. I use it all the time. You're in a crowded environment, you have to use closed captions because you cannot play the video loud. Everybody uses these things. Virtual assistants, voice assistants, there are so many things. The dark mode on your laptop. These things were designed for people with disabilities, but everybody uses these things. And I want to talk about the term disability. A lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of people who are building stuff, they don't make things accessible in the beginning because they say that's not their target audience. And the number right now is 26 to 27% in the United States, I think, people with disabilities, okay? That's what they say. 26 to 27% of the people have some kind of a disability in the United States. First of all, it's so wrong that we're not designing for that 26 to 27%. Second of all, the aging population in the United States is more than 55 million, if I'm not wrong. And people with low literacy skills, I think that's also 43 to 44 million. This is not accurate. This is not the accurate number. But aging is not a disability. Having not speaking the primary language is not a disability. But making things accessible, designing for disability, would be beneficial for everybody, for the aging population. When you age, you develop conditions. Hearing impairments, you develop conditions with your sight. So many things happen. I don't speak the primary language, and when I read something next to a painting, like a fancy description, I don't understand the words sometimes. The language is not inclusive. So, and even apart from that, in addition to that, actually, temporary disabilities and situational disabilities. You broke your arm, only one hand is functioning. That's a temporary disability. Anybody, it can happen to anybody. You came out of a very loud concert, your hearing is impaired for a bit. You cannot, these are situational disabilities. These things can happen to, you didn't sleep well, you're not thinking right. These things happen to everybody. So when I say design for disability, I mean that's going to make things better for everybody, including you and I, everybody.
You've given so many examples, and I wonder if there's some other things that are accessibility barriers on a daily basis that we may not even realize.
My professor said it one time. She said that if you push a door, that's actually a pull door. That doesn't mean you're stupid. That does not mean it's your fault. It's the design's fault. You're not stupid. You didn't do the wrong thing. If you push a door that is a pull door, it should have been intuitive enough for you to figure out. Intuitive for anybody. Not you, not me, anybody. So I think the biggest barrier is how we think accessibility is considered an add-on. It's so wrong. People design a product and then the accessibility team will make the product accessible. For compliance, just to be compliant, that's, first of all, that's not equitable. You built the product for people without disabilities. You prioritized people without disabilities. And then you thought of people with disabilities and you just want to make the product accessible to people with disabilities? What about enjoyment? You spent so much time making the product enjoyable for people without disabilities. And we think providing access is enough at the end of the process. It costs you more money. It costs you more effort. These are things that's in addition to the fact that it's wrong because it's not equitable. Wherever I go and wherever I work, I really try to incorporate accessibility from the very beginning of the process. I really try to do that. When I'm doing, we're the start of building a website, let's say. We ideate. While ideating, who's ideating? The designers.
Can you explain what ideation means for those people that don't know?
Brainstorming what to build, talking through ideas. When there's a design team or there's a requirement that comes in, we think of solutions of how to solve that problem that just came in, what to build, how to build. So we're ideating, we're brainstorming. We have to get user feedback at this point because, again, we cannot build something for people without them. We have to build it with them. So I would make sure to get user feedback at the same time, including people with disabilities. I've started this thing, so many places that I've worked at. When we do research, we recruit participants. So these participants these represent the audience that we're building for. And we have to include people with disabilities in that research. Because that's participatory research. They influence the decisions directly. That's what I want, and that's what I do all the time. I try to incorporate user feedback, user research. That's what is human-centered researcher, human-centered design. I am a user-centered design. I really like collecting feedback, gathering insights from users who are going to be using the product. So including this feedback, acting on it, and then iterating on it. When you make another version of the website, second version, third version, get user feedback every step, every process.
And humans are everybody, essentially.
Humans are everybody.
Yes, and that's what's missing.
Yeah, and earlier I talked about enjoyment, right? So I was involved in a project, I think this was back in 2023 or 2022, where we were looking at text-to-speech applications. People who have speech impairment, we were working with...
Describe real quick for those that don't know, what is text-to-speech?
Yes. Text-to-speech is you type something in and the computer or the software, the application basically, it says it out loud. So people who have speech impairments or anybody can use it. But we were working with people with cerebral palsy and they had speech impairment, different levels, different kinds. And we were looking at different speech to text devices, softwares, applications. We were looking at the efficiency and how these things work. And I think the common thing that we saw across all these products were that when we're talking, there's expressions, right? Your tone changes. When I'm happy, I say something, I'm excited, it shows up in my voice. I'm angry, it shows up in my voice. These text-to-speech software, these things, they're like saying stuff in a very mechanical voice. I don't know how to describe it, but see, I said I don't know how to describe it.
I don't know how to describe it.
There's no emotion. Where is that aspect of it's just working because it has to? It's not working because someone really wants things to be accessible or equitable. It's not an equitable experience. People who don't have speech impairments can talk in a certain way. If the builders or if the people who built these products thought of making this way of expression, accessible or equitable, they would have added that element. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying anything has to be easy. I'm just saying, where's that thought? The expression, the whole idea of expression gets lost.
This has really made me aware of a lot of things I was completely unaware of. There's this thing we have here at NYU GPH, which is it's a term that says it's invisible until it's your problem. It's invisible until it's your problem. Someone broke their leg. They didn't really consider what's going on. What are some stories that are coming to your mind of how you think of it's invisible until it's your problem?
It's true for everything, I think. It is invisible until it's your problem. That's why there's a problem of awareness, right? People, even now, I don't like saying it, people don't know how to even interact with people with disabilities.
Yeah.
They get awkward and it's okay to not know. Ask questions. Ask questions. Everybody is different. You are different. I am different. Everybody is different. That's the reason there's an issue of awareness. People are not aware of struggles, and that's what I try to do. I mean, I'm an accessibility advocate, and I just try to show people, and this is what I've been trying to do. It's so challenging. People are not aware because it's not their problem. They don't think about it. They don't think about being inclusive because why would they? There's no reason. Some people also ask this question, why should we make things accessible? What do you say to that? Because it is the right thing to do. Not because you should do it because otherwise you'll get sued. No. It's the right thing to do. It could happen to you tomorrow. You could have a broken arm. You're holding a baby in one arm. You only have one hand to operate. Why build something that allows you to interact with it only using two hands? Provide more options. Open more doors. That's what I did with HeartShare.
So tell us about what HeartShare is.
Yeah, they're this amazing nonprofit, art-based nonprofit in New York. And I have worked with a lot of nonprofits. After coming to New York, I started just collaborating because I didn't want to build anything. I didn't want to do anything myself. I wanted to work with people with disabilities, this is the idea of being inclusive, right? So HeartShare is an art-based nonprofit. It has a subset or another nonprofit that's called ArtShare. It's a part of HeartShare. So I'm an artist and I resonated with their vision, with their goals immedially, instantly.
Yeah, that sounds like you know, like what you mentioned before, heart and art and
yes.
Artist and accessibility plus art.
Exactly, yes. They're doing such incredible work, and they just have a lot of courses, a lot of things that people with disabilities come in. They paint, they make stuff, they're weaving classes. ArtShare has an annual exhibit. They showcase their art, the art that was created by people with disabilities. They showcase all of that once a year. And I wanted to collaborate with them to make the exhibition, the showcase, accessible. So we worked on a couple of pieces, a couple of paintings, and built alternate versions of those paintings. We made tactile versions of those paintings. We made
What
audio.
is a tactile version of a painting?
That's interesting because there's no one way to do it. A tactile version of a painting is anything that conveys similar meaning or experience, and that's a very deep topic. How do you translate the emotions of a painting? How do you translate the essence of a painting to something that can be used only using touch? How do you translate a painting to words? while creating visual descriptions. How do you create a visual description? That's what my research was on, actually. So this was so cool. We wanted to create visual descriptions of all of those paintings. And we didn't want to do it. I cannot look at a painting and there's a tree in the painting, and I write, okay, there's a tree in this painting. Someone who has been blind since birth, they don't know what a tree looks like. That's not fair.
It's like trying to describe what a rose looks like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That was very challenging, and not challenging. That was good, actually, because then we worked with the artists who actually painted these paintings. So how and why did you paint this? How did you paint it? What does this mean to you? We had a lot of amazing sessions, amazing interviews with artists, because that's not my story. That painting was painted by an artist, and it's so wrong for me. So that this happens in a lot of places where the curator creates the descriptions of paintings that comes to them in exhibitions or any place that showcases art. The artist's vision or the artist's idea gets lost, and I really wanted to include these artists in my process, artists with people with disabilities. These are people with disabilities who created amazing paintings, and we included them in the process of creating these visual descriptions, highlighting what the painting meant to them, the emotions. And tactile art, like you asked, it's just a version of the painting that you can touch. It can be raised lines. So I tried to translate color into patterns. How do you translate color to something that's tactile? If the top part is blue and the bottom part is brown, you don't have to say blue and brown. You can just say, if it's day, you just make a pattern that maybe feels fresh. Just translating the emotion, not translating the literal meaning of it. If it's morning, if it's the painting of morning, the tactile version won't exactly be what, and this is my way of how I did it. There are 1,000 ways that you can build tactile art. So translating the emotion rather than translating the actual content was, I think, I thought that was the right thing to do at that point. And that was one way. And I'm so interested in exploring more ways. Like I said, there's no one way of making things accessible. This was an idea. And I implemented that idea with people with disabilities.
First off, I find it so cool that emotions expressed something to describe rather than a method. Like you mentioned in the beginning, everything's a system, everything's a method. You use something that all of us more or less have as an emotion of some kind, and how do you express that emotion to someone that can't really perceive it the same way we do with eyes or with our hearing or any other form that people have a disability with or an accessibility issue. I want to know about some more experiences of working at these nonprofits, because it seems like an environment where you're exposed to all of these things. What are some stories that stand out to you working at these nonprofits?
Yeah, there's an amazing nonprofit in Long Island. They're Johannas Hope. They are also an art-based nonprofit. And I actually worked with them to create their branding, their designs, their logos. This was when I was a student at NYU. And I continued to work with them like I did with HeartShare. And we were trying to make art accessible as well. So I held tactile art workshops, and this moment just keeps coming back to me. This was an incredible moment. So these are all of the people with disabilities. So that's an organization that works to empower people with disabilities again, right? And using art, they come, build stuff, create designs, paint. So one time I was in the middle of this workshop that I had conducted. It was about creating tactile art. And we had created tactile art using farm stuff.
Interesting.
Stuff from the farm, like eggshells and honey things. It's just, I don't even know
Honeycombs?
bits of the honeycomb.
Nice.
Bits of it. And like grass and everything. So many different things. Feathers. Farm stuff. We created tactile art using farm stuff. It's not that you need fancy stuff to make something accessible. If you just start thinking about it, half the work is done. That's more than half of it. So this moment keeps coming to me. And I was in the middle of saying something. I think I was talking about how in museums where you keep art, the descriptions next to it. I was in the middle of talking about museums. And this one person, she says, but we're not allowed to touch art. I
Wow.
was like, that's it. That's why you make alternate versions. That's why you create alternate versions that you can touch or listen to or read. We have 5 senses. Why allow only the use of one? Open more doors, more entry points. And this is what Hart, Sharon, I are actually we were working on. Opening more doors, more entry points to a piece of painting. Everybody perceives art differently. How do you make it accessible? And you don't have to replace the original painting. You have to create bits around it that would then become an accessible art package instead of just one.
I can talk to you forever, and I'm going to ask you 2 more questions based on everything. Awesome insights you mentioned. I'm sure a lot of people are inspired and resonating with what you have done right now, at least for me, is you have put thoughts that I've had on a regular basis into words. And a lot of people probably experience something and they have a icky feeling around it, but they don't know how to put that into words.
I don't even want to seem like I'm doing something great. This is not great or good work. This is the bare minimum. Things are not accessible. They should be accessible. Communities were eliminated, are being eliminated. So the work that I do, it's not great work. It's not something that's, oh, wow. It's not that. It's the bare minimum that should have been there in the first place, but it wasn't done. So
how can people start doing the bare minimum for those of us that, like you said, have no idea, don't even consider it? How can people start thinking about this going forward?
Think about universal design. You're going to get old. You're going to get old. Aging is not a disability. But if you make something accessible, if you build stuff, you don't have to be a software engineer to create a difference, to actually build an accessible product. You can be anybody. You can be a podcast host. You can make the podcast accessible. You're creating a video on Instagram. Make that accessible. You do whatever you're doing, whatever you're creating, whatever you're even organizing, make it accessible, because it's not just that 27%, like I said. It's much. Accessible design is designing for disability. I'm repeating myself. Designing for disabilities makes things accessible, which make things universal. Universal meaning everybody has access or can use it, and it becomes better for everybody. These things, the things that we use, so many things that we use were designed for people with disabilities, but we benefit from those things.
The students at this school think a little bit. You have expanded their thinking a little bit and exposed them to the design side of things and the engineering and the creative side of things, because you're working with tech companies as well to incorporate this. So you've been noticing how these things are impacting it. For the students that go to GPH, NYU is a multidisciplinary school. You can go into any school and access any school. What are some resources that the students that are public health professionals and can influence policy in the world, Where can they go to learn more about accessibility?
The biggest resource, I think, is the Ability Project at NYU.
The Ability Project?
The Ability Project at NYU. Amazing professors, so amazing, and just start doing projects, start being involved. Or an amazing resource is also just starting to work with nonprofits who work with people with disabilities. Just include everybody in your process. The Ability Project is where I wanted to work when I was applying to schools, and I was like, oh my God, this is where I want to be. And I had the incredible opportunity to actually work there. And I still talk to a lot of students and point them to directions that they. So I'm connected with a lot of nonprofits, and I help students connect with nonprofits and then start working with them. Whatever you're doing, it would make things better than they really are. You cannot fix everything in one day. You have to start somewhere.
And that's what the GPH students are going to take forward. Spandita, thank you.
Thank you. I'm so happy.
Folks, now that's your introduction to the world of accessibility. Everything that Spandita has mentioned, we're going to put the link in the description to resources you might have access to. Everyone comes to the School of Public Health with some kind of dream, and if accessibility is something that interests you, this is a great introduction and a masterclass, I would say, to the world of accessibility. Thanks, Spandita, for being on the episode.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.